Today we're going to take a look at The Partisans, an extra politics game based on the series by Extra Credits of the same name. First, let's look at our components and setup. I've set the game up here for a 6-player game. The game plays up to 6 players. It's very simple. The board is well laid out and it tells you where everything goes. So I've taken my 3 small decks of cards, my political action cards. These are the dirty tricks we can play. My lobbies, these are the people who will be giving us money. Events, these are the random events that will happen in the game that we will have to respond to. Next up, I've made my various amendment stacks. I've done this by randomizing these issue tokens. In this case, I pulled education and civil rights. So I took all the education and civil rights amendments and put them in this stack. And then I've done that for all of these. And this gives you sort of a semi-random setup for each game. Working my way down here on the bill tracker, I've put all of the blue-purple tokens in the first 5 spots and the red ones in the next 5 spots. These are going to track how many bills you voted on in the game. Put the D10 on the board, and on the governmental priority tracker, I've taken these cubes and I've put them all on the start spot. It's worth noting these are just prototype materials. The final materials will be different. And then after you set up the board, you're going to figure out which faction you are. In this game, I'll be playing the blue collar. It could be the libertarians or the traditionalists or any of the other factions in the game. Then we are each going to draw 1 lobby card. In this case, I drew United Labor, which is actually a pretty good pairing for blue collar. All players will do the same thing. These are public, so everyone will see who's giving you money. Then we will each draw 2 political action cards. These will be kept secret because there are dirty tricks. Then we will figure out who the senior committee chair is and the junior committee chair. During the course of the game, you will have a chance to be committee chair. For the sake of argument, we'll just say that I'm the senior committee chair. That means the senior committee is me and the 2 players to my right. The 3rd player to my right will be the junior committee chair. That'd be the nationalist over there. And their committee will be them and the 2 players to the chair's right as well. So we'll sort of split up into 2 teams of 3. And I think the last thing to do is to put all of our victory track counters on the score tracker. And then I think we're ready to play. Turns in the Partisans are really easy to track because the board itself lays out exactly what the phases of each turn are. So I'm going to go over 1 turn right now. First thing we do is we gain 4 political capital. That's these green tokens. This is essentially your political capital that you will use to vote and for other things in the game. Start of every turn, you're going to gain 4, plus 1 more for each lobby that you have. So I'm going to take my 5 political capital, and I'll be using that during this turn, or holding some for next turn. Next thing we do, we're going to draw a political action card. All players will draw an additional political action card and put it in their hand. Next thing we do is we'll be figuring out who the committee chairs are. We've already done that for this turn. In following turns, the committee chairmanship will go 1 to the left. So your teams of 3 will be shifting as the game goes on. Next thing we're going to do is, starting with the senior committee chair, I'm going to pick one of these amendment stacks with which to make my bill. I'll just choose this first one, civil rights and education. And so I'm going to draw 8 cards off of that stack and put it back. Now the junior committee chair will do the same thing to a different stack. We will then gather as committees and try to put together the best bill we can. The bill will contain up to 3 of these amendments, from 1 to 3 amendments. And while it's best to get your committee to agree as best you can, it's up to the committee chair what ends up in the final bill. So technically I could just make whatever bill I want, but it probably wouldn't pass because I wouldn't have support of the rest of the committee. So after a few minutes of negotiation, it's time to bring our bill to the floor. In this case, my bill is made up of 3 amendments: religious freedom, a community college program, and an anti-state discrimination amendment. I take the cards I didn't use and I shuffle those back into the stack. Now I get to name my bill and explain to the other players why our nation really needs this bill to pass. I will call this bill Freedom Eagle Claw America, because that seems like a good idea. And I will explain to them why it clearly is good for the people of America. Now we have a chance to play any of those sneaky cards that I talked about earlier, the political action cards. The person with the first chance to play a card is to the left of the committee chair. So if you make the bill, the people who didn't make the bill have the first chance to sort of mess with the situation. So in this case, the player over here, the bourgeois, might play this card, which is a great card, which is called Pro Level Spin. Now, Pro Level Spin has a cost of 1 action, so that player will need to discard one of their political capitals. And the card says all players on the losing side of the bill get their political capital back. As you can imagine, that's going to mess with how much political capital they spend. They currently don't like the bill, so they're okay being on the losing side. So this is going to go around, and everyone's going to get a chance to play 1 card, with one important limitation. These cards come in varying numbers of colors, and once someone's played a card of that color, you're not allowed to play another one of a matching color. So because the yellow card has been played, no player may play any more cards with the yellow text box. So when it gets around to me, for instance, I can't play my card that has a yellow border, yellow text box, but I could play one that has a blue text box because no one's played one of those yet. So after all those cards are played, we can negotiate some more. In this game, you can trade anything except victory points. So I could give you political capital to vote my way, etc. And when it's time to vote, it's handled very simply. You take your available political capital, you put some number of them in your hand, close your hand. You do this secretly, obviously. And then the committee chair counts backwards from 3, 3, 2, 1, vote, and you either vote thumbs up or thumbs down. And once you voted, you reveal how many political capital you used in that vote. And then you put those tokens in the thumb up or thumb down space. So after a vote, it might look something like this, with some number of votes for and some number of votes against. As long as there's more in the thumbs up section, the bill passes. A tie is considered it failing. So in this case, the bill passes. Now we're going to resolve that card over here that said all players on the losing side get their political capital back. So all this capital goes back to the players who voted no. This capital will be discarded. Now we're going to see how to score that bill. When you score a bill, you basically look for your faction's icon on the side that you voted for. So I voted thumbs up, and I am the blue collar player. So my icon is this little blue hammer. I score 3 victory points for each one of my icons that's on the side I voted for, as long as that side won. So I show up twice, so I'm going to get 6 victory points. The libertarian to my right showed up once. They're going to score 3 victory points, and so on around the table. You might find yourself in a situation like the nationalists do here, where they're on both sides of the bill. The way that works is as long as you're on the side that won, so as long as the nationalist player voted on the side that won, they will score 1 victory point. They'll score 3 for being on the side, and then they'll lose 2 for being on the other side. So the nationalist player is going to score 1 victory point, assuming they voted for this bill to pass. Who else scores? The traditionalist is going to score 3. And we just mark all that on the victory point tracker over here. All right, now we're going to take a look at our lobbies. Obviously, your lobbies want you to vote a certain way. So in my case, because I'm United Labor appears on the side I voted for. Every time your lobby appears on the side you voted for, you get 2 more political capital, which is great. That's them giving you money that you can use. Now, the libertarian player over here, their lobby was the Equal Rights Coalition. And you can see that they voted yes, which is what got them the victory points. But the Equal Rights Coalition wanted them to vote no. So that lobby is going to go away. This is going to happen anytime there are more of that lobby's icons on the side you didn't vote for. And this happens whether it passed or not. Other players will score for lobbies as well. And again, unlike victory points, lobbyists will give you money as long as you voted the way they wanted you to vote. So, for instance, in this case, even though the communitarians voted no, as long as they had the Equal Rights Coalition as their lobby, they would score the 2 political capital. You'll often find there's a tension in the game between voting with your lobbies or voting with your factions. Now, the Libertarian who lost their lobbies don't have to worry, because if you don't have at least one lobby, next turn they'll draw a new one. All right, so after we've scored the bill and we've gotten our scores for our faction icons and we've gained political capital from our lobbies, all the political capital that was spent gets discarded. All of the political action cards that were used get discarded as well. And we move on to events. We flip over the top event after voting for a bill. This one says Quiet News Day. Easy day, nothing happens, so no special effect. But it does have the little D10 icon, so we're going to roll this D10. This D10 rolled, and it's a 9. So we're going to take the next available bill icon and put it on issue number 9 down here, National Security. That's going to affect endgame scoring. Then the last thing we're going to do with our bill is we're going to track governmental priorities. If you look at the bill, there's small numbers inside of the thumbs up and thumbs down. That basically says how much more involved government is going to be in that topic. So civil rights, because the Religious Freedom Bill passed, is going to move 2 to the left. So we're going to take this little tracker, move it 2 to the left. Education, because the community college program passed, is going to move 1 to the right. And the anti-discrimination is going to move another 1 to the left for civil rights. Now that bill is done. We discard that bill off the bottom of the board. And it's time for the junior committee to go through their bill as well. The junior committee will go through their bill. We'll vote. We'll play cards. They'll move this to somewhere, and they'll move the tracker. The partisans ends anytime you roll that D10 and you put a red token on any issue that already has at least 1 token on it. So, for instance, if we had just voted on this bill and we rolled the dice and we got a 6, this red token would go here on topic number 6, and there's already a token there. That would trigger the end of the game. So in this game, you never really know exactly what turn the game's going to end on. Now it's time for endgame scoring. Endgame scoring is based on what faction you're playing. Each faction has their own goals for what they think the government should be most involved in. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at where the government thinks important things should be happening. So for instance, the blue collar here in civil rights, they want the government priority to be still in the middle. So I'm not going to score any victory points for that one. Education here, I want it to be on the positive side, and that's what I want. And because there's a token there, I scored 2 victory points. We're only going to score victory points in the topics where there's tokens. So even though employment also ended up where I wanted it to be, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have one of these suit tokens on it. Over here on topic 6, which is global warming, if global warming ended up, I'd get 3 victory points because there's 2 tokens there. After we score up our endgame's victory points, we're just going to see who's further along on the victory point tracker, and that player will be our winner. Some final thoughts on the partisans. First off, I love in this game that you actually play a political ideology and not a political party. I think it's a really fun take at the genre of political games. It also stops for fighting, and it also creates this almost fun role-play environment when you play, because the bills that you're for are the kind of bills a person with that ideology would be for. Secondly, I'm really happy this game plays so well at 5 and 6 players. I have a lot of games on my shelf that max out at 4, and it's just good to have another game you can take off the shelf and play when that 5th and 6th player show up. I really like the negotiation in this game. It's very clean, and I love the end game scoring. It's probably one of my favorite parts. The idea that you don't know when the game's going to end creates some really fun tension and negotiation towards the end of the game. So everything sort of ramps up to a great climax at the end of this game. So there you have it. That's The Partisans by Fun to 11. It is on Kickstarter right now. You should check it out. And thanks for watching.